Showtime! The Capital G Show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So today I want to tell you guys about the completely surreal and still to this day unbelievable story of Upperdeck versus Konami. For those of you who don't know, Konami didn't always oversee the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. In fact, for the entire Duel Monsters and GX eras, the TCG side of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was ran completely by Upperdeck Entertainment. They organized the Shonen Jump series, they distributed the product, and they were the ones that stores and players talked to directly when it came to the game. They licensed Yu-Gi-Oh! From Konami, and considering they had been in the trading card business since the late 80s, they were an ideal pick for a Japanese company who wanted to have their game spread to a Western audience. And honestly, for about 7 years, for the most part, this relationship was smooth sailing, but little did everyone know that this love boat was about to hit an iceberg so big that it would completely capsize their entire marriage. The year was 2008, October to be exact. The Duel's Genesis had only been out for a couple of months, and Teledat had just won its first Shonen Jump championship. The community was getting the hang of the synchro mechanic and enjoying it tremendously, but that is when Konami dropped a bomb that sent shockwaves throughout the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Community when they filed a complaint in a California district court against a company called Vintage Sports Cards. The complaint charged Vintage with distributing repackaged Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that contained counterfeit cards. This in itself was pretty strange because at the time we rarely if ever actually heard from Konami themselves, as everything was pretty much funneled through the Upperdeck company. And you're probably thinking, okay, so what, Cap? You know, some random company got caught selling Yu-Gi-Oh! Knockoff cards. What's the big deal? The big deal was because of this complaint, Konami was granted an injunction against Vintage, but during the process, Vintage provided evidence alleging that Upperdeck was actually the source of the fake cards. Yeah, this is actually some Narcos level shit because Upperdeck and Konami had been partners for 7 years. According to Vintage, the company that Konami had been in business with for 7 years and the company that ran the entire TCG trading card game had been selling fake cards under their nose at the same time. Now, Konami immediately took legal action and subpoenaed records from Upperdeck, but they in turn just basically ignored the subpoena and they refused to comply with it, raising a legal objection. At this point, everyone knew that this marriage was heading for divorce, but it was about to get real nasty and very, very messy before that. A couple of months later, Upperdeck fired back. Keep in mind, during this entire time, they were still actively running the TCG. Upperdeck filed a suit in the District of Nevada alleging Konami breached its agreements, committed fraud, and even slandered the Upperdeck company itself. Konami was furious, and they essentially said, screw you guys, this is our game, we're taking it back. They did this by formally having the American Konami branch announce that it would be taking over control of the TCG side of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Upperdeck answered by denying Konami's accusations and threatening legal action should Konami continue to broadcast information of their hostile takeover of the TCG and basically that they were printing counterfeit cards. It's like the old saying goes, them fighting words, and this is a duel that would be fought in court. In late December of 2008, Upperdeck filed a suit in Amsterdam, and an injunction was scheduled for a hearing in the Netherlands between Upperdeck and Konami. On Christmas Eve, a Dutch court decided in the favor of Upperdeck International, which temporarily overruled Konami's hostile takeover and the termination of their contract. This was a complete shitstorm at this point, especially for premier tournament organizers, because it meant that Upperdeck was in charge of the TCG in Europe, Latin America, and Oceania, but Konami controlled the entirety of North America. Are you confused yet? Because this shit's going to get pretty confusing. Konami in turn strengthened their position by filing an amended complaint that added Upperdeck as a co-defendant in the original suit against Vintage. Moving forward to mid-January 2009, Upperdeck announced that Konami had not sent champion packs to them to distribute the Hobby League stores. These were essentially the old school OTS packs. For those of you who have no idea what champion packs are, that prompted a response from Konami where they essentially said, bitch, I ain't fucking with you. They announced that they were the only authorized distributors of the packs and they would no longer supply those to Upperdeck as a company anymore. The strange thing was Upperdeck didn't really seem to care because they shrugged it off and continued to make plans for product support, while in late January, once again, they denied the counterfeit charge. This was now just awkward, like if a married couple hated each other and the wife cooked dinner but only made enough for herself and then she told her husband, make your own, bitch. Unfortunately, this situation was temporarily made even more complicated when a district court in California ruled in favor of Upperdeck on the preliminary injunction, which gave Upperdeck control over North America again. I told you this shit was going to get even more complicated, didn't I? This lasted for all of about 2 weeks when Konami filed a renewed motion in these very same courts against Upperdeck and Vintage, citing additional evidence which led to the courts reversing their rulings. This meant that North America once again belonged to Konami, but the court took it a step further this time. They ordered Upperdeck to stop using Konami's trademark and to completely disassociate itself with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game in the region as well. Upperdeck had just taken a huge blow, but in a stroke of genius, and I guess what you could say scorn as well, they did something that no one, and I mean no one, could have predicted. The company seemingly out of thin air announced what they were calling Upperdeck Day. They announced that they would be holding Yu-Gi-Oh! Events throughout all of North America on the first weekend of February, and to further garner hype, they said that they would not only be dishing out current product, but they would be giving out Shonen Jump prize cards as well as cash fucking prizes at these events. This was insane because this entire extravaganza was basically something that Upperdeck made out of thin air to dump all of their product. What made this even more crazy is because Upperdeck deliberately scheduled this as the same weekend as the Crimson Crisis sneak peek. I mean, this was just a giant fuck you to Konami, the company that they had spent the last 7 years in bed with, and that is just unbelievable. After all, who is going to pay $20 for a sneak peek when you could win Shonen Jump prize cards and just straight up cash for the same amount? This forced Konami to push back the Crimson Crisis set and the sneak peek an entire month. And for those of you who are wondering, Upperdeck wasn't just done with that. Not willing to be outdone by the court ruling that I spoke of earlier, on the very same day that the court ruled, Upperdeck filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against Konami in Nevada, claiming that the Eye of Anubis hologram, you know, the one that's in the bottom corner of like every Yu-Gi-Oh card ever, was actually their trademark. In addition, they continued to file lawsuits against Konami for breach of contract, fraud, slander, and even civil conspiracy. They were just racking up the lawsuits against Konami. They were just throwing everything at the wall just to see what would stick. This was no longer a messy divorce. This was essentially a WWE Hell in a Cell match. But don't worry, in the end, this troubling debacle finally came to a conclusion when on April 15th, 2009, the Amsterdam High Court of Appeals overturned its previous ruling favoring Upperdeck, which now gave Konami complete control over the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game worldwide, and that brought our story to a close. So, what did you guys think of this story? And again, this is, I like these Yu-Gi-Oh! Stories because I've played the game so long, and especially for those of you players who maybe started playing during like Zexal or Art V, there is so much crazy shit in this game that you honestly would not believe. Like, you can't even make this stuff up. But I remember going to a regionals in Charlotte and like the beginning of the Teledad era, and I remember talking to my friend Jay Quick, and I was like, Jay, what the fuck is going on with this game right now? You know, there were people who were unsure if Yu-Gi-Oh! Was even going to be around, if we were going to be able to start using Japanese cards because we didn't have to listen to Upperdeck anymore. It was a really crazy time, and a time of uncertainty, and control of the game kept flip-flopping back between Upperdeck and Konami, and then Upperdeck came up with their crazy Upperdeck Day, which was really wild as well. It was a really interesting time in the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Yu-Gi-Oh! Story, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this series. I will make another one fairly soon. Give me probably until the end of the month. I think I should be able to have the next one done. I already know the topic. I just have to research it a little bit and kind of write up the scripts. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not already. And of course, thank you guys for watching as always.
Subscribing makes life happy.